Welcome back, everybody. Our next guest tonight has a brilliant legal mind and is keeping our country safer while advocating for further transparency within our government. Tom Fitton is the president of Judicial Watch, and he joins us now. Tom, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Sir, I want to lead off with this lawsuit. Last November, I believe it was, you filed a FOIA request for communications and connections between, or anything pertaining to the Twitter files, Elon Musk. Obviously, the most recent dump of these Twitter files, I think, was last week regarding Stanford's Virality Project. Talk to us about this lawsuit and why it's so important.
Well, the Biden Federal Trade Commission immediately started harassing Musk and Twitter. I think it was within minutes, I'm exaggerating for effect, of his taking over Twitter, pretending that they were concerned about this consent decree about that is supposed to protect the privacy of Twitter users. And they used that as a pretext to ask for all records about Elon Musk, literally all records about Elon Musk, and records of communications with journalists about the exposés, as you term the Twitter files correctly. And, how is this not harassment? And it's been, I think, one of a dozen. As far as I recall, the House released that there was at least a dozen requests for virtually all of Twitter's files. And we know the Biden administration and Biden personally has it in for Elon Musk. We think this is part of it. And we asked the FTC for these records, and specifically the role of the leadership, the appointees of Joe Biden in this harassment of Musk. And of course, they've given us nothing. And that's why we had to sue in federal court under the FOIA to get access to these records. So you've got this unprecedented abuse of Musk in retaliation for him bringing more free speech to Twitter, and pretending the retaliation based on the idea that they're concerned about the rule of law, and when in fact they're violating the law and hiding records about this abuse and retaliation.
That's going to be an important one to get to the bottom of, like you always do. You always end up winning these things, and the American people win as well. I remember all the great efforts that you did to get us information about what the Clinton Foundation was doing and where their money was coming from. A lot of controversial foreign sources we learned over the years. You just won a big victory. This is absolutely amazing to me. But terrorist-tied Qatar was giving money to the Texas A&M University. You just won a legal battle to get those documents public so we can see what they were funding and what was going on there. Why is this important? And is this further sign of sort of the radicalization of our universities?
Yeah, well, this Qatar Foundation was funding Texas A&M's programs. They had, I think, a facility in a campus in Qatar. Right. And the foundation is a creature of the government. It's essentially run by the leadership of the Qatari government that's been tied to supporting Islamist terrorism. It's viciously anti-Israel. And so we asked for documents about what was going on here with Texas A&M for our clients, the core legal institute. And Qatar just went to town in terms of trying to stop us from finding basic details about its funding of Texas A&M. And it went up and down the courts in Texas. And finally, it was in a position to be resolved ultimately in our favor by a state court judge in Texas, who found that the documents about this funding and the relationship have to be released. So we'll see what happens next. I don't know if Qatar is going to try to appeal it, but it's a big victory. It's, as I've said, David versus Goliath. And just to be clear, we're the David.
Yeah.
Yeah, thankfully. Tom, I think that most Americans look at something like this and they think to themselves, how on earth was this ever allowed to happen? And it goes back decades. I mean, I think like 60 years since the National Defense Education Act, when our government was to their benefit trying to create an educational hub from which to draw espionage, people with the skills and culture from something like this. Where we went wrong, though, parents nowadays, they have to deal with Confucius Institute's and the influence of the CCP across campuses. They have to deal with teachers and educators trying to turn their children to another gender or make them gender, non-binary or whatever. And now they have to worry about something like this. With respect to Texas A&M, because I've heard of this happening on other campuses, UC Santa Barbara, UC Berkeley, Syracuse, Rutgers, Cornell, Georgetown, the list goes on and on and on. Are there more campuses you're going to have to target because of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big issue. It's become a bigger issue in recent years because of the inordinate influence of Chinese-connected entities on college campuses. And just think, you're Qatar, you're Saudi Arabia, you're the communists running China, and these universities are willing to take your money. And why wouldn't you put a foothold here in the United States? Not only is it our national interest in a kind of a general sense advanced, but in the case of the Chinese, it's a way to, frankly, to keep track of Chinese students in the United States, advance their interest by having a foothold here. And in the case of Qatar, that's been linked to so much dangerous activity and terrorism, the idea they're working hand in glove with a university, a fine university otherwise, like Texas A&M. It's the heart of Texas, and who would have thunk that university had this special relationship with the government of Qatar?
Yeah, that's an amazing discovery and an important one. And I think we're going to learn a lot more about other foreign influences. I want to turn from foreign influences on schools to political influences on the Manhattan District Attorney. In the block just before you, Jim Jordan came on, House Judiciary Chairman, said, listen, we have some fears that people in Washington, Biden White House, Biden Justice Department, maybe the old Mueller people or members of Congress have been pressuring Alvin Bragg. How important is it to get that out into the public if that has happened?
Oh, it's exceedingly important. President Trump is a candidate for the presidency. He's a former president. And if a district attorney is bending the law, to put it charitably, to try to make him a political prisoner at the behest of the Biden administration, led by his putative opponent, there's an urgent matter that it be released, and we find out more. And of course, this all was begun in many ways by the deep state DOJ, frankly, under the Trump administration, where Barr let the Southern District of New York, which is full of anti-Trumpers and Mueller, ex-Mueller officials, go after Cohen. And there's no reason to think that those connections and that push stopped after Biden took office. I would suspect they increased. And you can be
using
sure
the government
Judicial
as
Watch is
muscle
also
against
pursuing these leads.
Great.
Tom, we are going to be following that right along with you. We appreciate you coming on always. You bring such wisdom. And we look forward to hearing more about your latest victories. We'll be right back.